Hi there! Here's an update for the Electro Voltaic grenade build. I'll take you along the ride here. I'm just going to continue doing this map, and I'll comment on the video a little bit to let you know the changes I've made, the gem links I'm using now, and why I decided to give up the 3 Dragons helmet after testing it in update 4, I believe it was. So yep, now I gave up the 3 Dragons, kept the Cloak of Flames because I believe that the physical mitigation is very important for the Mercenary. Most YouTube builds you'll see are either builds that cost 150 Divine and upwards, or builds that showcase a working build that can do the end game, that can do the pinnacle bosses, but the content that is shown to you on screen is handpicked, and they're only maps that don't really test a character. Sometimes you'll see something slip through, but if you pay attention, you'll notice that most of those builds that tell you, oh, 1-click damage, whatever, that are supposedly good, that use 3 Dragons, oftentimes are not good at mitigating physical damage. You'll even notice the guys getting smashed by physical damage whenever there is physical damage incoming, because a lot of builds that use the 3 Dragons build a sorcery ward that is quite big, like 3-4k of defense here of a shield, but that is only good to defend you against elemental damage from hits, not from spells, and it doesn't protect you from physical damage. So you need actual physical damage mitigation. And one passive note spent in this section here helps, but does not fix a problem. Whereas a Cloak of Flames really fixes the problem. 40% of physical damage taken as fire. On top of that, you get yourself some maximum fire resistance, and might as well get maximum resistance to the other elements, and you're in business. Right now I'm doing a map that is tier 16. Tier 18 actually, level 82. You can see here at the top right. Look at all the mods that are here. It's a big juicy map I just put in, and it's like a walk in the park for me right now. I'm outputting too much damage. It's going well, and this is with a build that has barely 10 to 15 divines invested. So you don't need a 150 divine build with that stat stacking or using the broken builds that are going to get nerfed soon, like monk freeze builds or whatever. So this is a fun build. I'm happy and I'm proud of this because I built this myself, just going along for the ride. I was using the grenades, explosive grenade build at first that I had found on the internet, and then I got attracted by the description of the Voltaic grenades. I loved the animations. I just found them really fun to use. I love the synergy with electrocute, and then the synergy with shock burst, and from there I just improvised completely. And after hours and hours and hours of testing, here you go, a little update for you guys that's going to help you figure out how to better handle this build and have fun with it without having to spend crazy currency. And it's important to know where to spend your currency. It's important to know how to balance your character so you can play the endgame content and have fun. It's important to know the weaknesses of the build and how to overcome them, which I have after a lot of work. So yeah, why not use the 3 Dragons, you might ask? At first I tried it because I wanted to be able to profit from the Herald of Ice aura. I'm going to keep going here. But I decided to drop it because of many bad synergies and consequences of using the 3 Dragons. So the positive, the upside of using the 3 Dragons is that your lightning damage now freezes instead of just shocking. But then you need another source of damage to do shocking, because shocking is very important in PoE, because enemies that are shocked take 20% increased damage, and that shows when you play, you'll notice it. So if you use the 3 Dragons and Voltaic Grenade becomes your freeze build-up skill, then you need a fire skill to proc your shocks. Let me just take care of these guys. There you go. And yeah, so the 3 Dragons is actually bad, I think, on the Mercenary, because in order to use it you need to spend a lot of currency to mitigate the physical damage. And if you use the 3 Dragons and you also use a unique chest, that's 2 items in your build that are uniques, that kind of rob you from stats that you need. And the defenses are very, very important on the Mercenary. The weaknesses of the Mercenary as a class, not for this build specifically, but the weaknesses of a Mercenary or a Witch Hunter or whatever are mainly being attribute starved. Defense layers are needed, and often hard to find or balance, and mana costs. Those are the three hurdles that a mercenary faces, but the worst one being the defensive layers. A lot of classes have easy access to energy shield nodes that are north side of the passive skill tree. The mercenary does not. So you have to do a lot of traveling or invest a lot of currency into gear and jewels that will allow you to get a ton of stat stacking and therefore fix your defenses by getting a bunch of energy shield, despite you starting off at the south side of the passive skill tree. Now with this build that I'm running right now, walk in the park, right? Tier 18 map. And I've got my defenses covered. I've got everything covered. The gem links, the mana costs, every weaknesses of the mercenary has been overcome in this build, and for cheap. That's pretty cool. So I'm going to activate this real quick, and I'll show you why. Why not use the 3 dragons? Well, a couple of reasons. You won't find that in most videos that showcase them. I hate how some videos have become clickbait nowadays. Like, it looks so great, and then you try it and you end up dying like crazy, and you think, what the heck, I followed the guide, I'm gonna keep dying, or I have to spend 100 divines in order to get it to work. Well, here's why. Let's port to town real quick just so we can take a look at that 3 dragons helmet and see for ourselves what others might have missed. Well, the 3 dragons makes your lightning damage build freeze element instead of shock. And it makes your fire damage build lightning instead of ignite, and it makes your cold damage build ignite instead of freeze. Okay, sounds great at first. You think, wow, my Voltaic grenades are now freezing everything, and I'm proccing Herald of Ice. It's amazing, but you actually don't need it. This build has so much clear that you don't even need a Herald of Ice, and the only reason why everybody's wanting to use Herald of Ice is because of how good it is at clearing, but you are already superb at clearing. As long as you keep the Zealot Inquisition in your passive skill tree, this build can kick ass in terms of clearing. Now, what's wrong with the 3 dragons, and what's wrong with reusing Herald of Ice? Well, if you are running a cold-based damage, cold-based damage build, yes, Herald of Ice makes sense. If not, it doesn't make sense. Despite what others might tell you on YouTube, it doesn't make sense. And here's why. Let me just find it. Where did I put it? 3 dragons. There it is. Okay, so the 3 dragons. Here's a problem. Your lightning damage now contributes to freezing enemies, which is great. The problem is, in order to do a chain reaction where you wipe a whole screen, which is the point of using Herald of Ice, which is what monks can do because of their ascension passives. But in order to do that, you need the explosions from Herald of Ice to actually do freeze. If you are wearing the 3 dragons mask, your explosions from Herald of Ice now build ignites. They don't build freeze. So that means, let's say you use a lightning-based skill, such as Herald of Thunder, or Voltaic Grenade, or even Shock Burst rounds, or whatever, and you end up shocking it, you end up freezing the first batch of enemies, right? They are now frozen. You kill them, they become shattered, and as they shatter, Herald of Ice will cause an explosion of cold damage to the surrounding enemies. But seeing as you're wearing the 3 dragons helmet, that cold damage is now building up ignite and not freeze. If that cold explosion could also freeze the next batch of enemies, then you would get a chain reaction. Now obviously, if you put that aside, having a maximum amount or a big amount of AoE type skills is still a way to chain reaction clear the screen. It's not as reliable, but suppose you have Herald of Ash, Herald of Ice, Herald of Thunder, Zealot Inquisition from your passive skill tree, and maybe even other AoE sources. Well, yes, you're going to clear stuff fast, because even if you're not chaining like crazy, you might get a chain reaction from just multiple AoE spells proccing. So like Herald of Ash exploding, followed by an explosion from your Zealous Inquisition, followed by the damage buff from your Herald of Thunder. All of that combined can help you clear. It's just not as impressive visually because you might not get like a poof, like a whole screen get wiped. I've seen entire screens get wiped though recently with this. I wasn't doing it as often before, but ever since I upgraded my rings, I don't know what happened, but this thing is just clearing. It's doing entire screens wiped. So I'm going to show you that in a few seconds. So yeah, 3 dragons bad for many reasons, because first of all, it doesn't do the chain reaction we want from Herald of Ice, so there's that. Second of all, we don't need that much AoE. We already have plenty of damage, plenty of AoE, and so we don't need it. Plus, it robs us of a unique slot in the sense that we're wearing two uniques. And in that sense, it's bad already, but it's even worse because most builds that run the 3 dragons also run explosive shot as a skill with shock burst rounds, and they require, in order to achieve their defense layers, the use of bestial skin, or sorry, I might not say that word right. Yeah, bestial skin. 100% increased evasion rating from your equipped body armor. Now, in order to use this passive, you can't be wearing Cloak of Flames, because Cloak of Flame is energy shield based, so you're not going to get anything from that passive node. And so if you're running the 3 dragons and working on your defensive layers, you either go with a huge sorcery ward by stacking evasion, dexterity, stuff like that, which works to building a really nice elemental barrier. But in this game, the elemental damage is one thing. Physical damage should be your main concern when it comes to the Mercenary, because that is the one area where you can get smashed, especially if you're fighting pinnacle bosses or difficult bosses. Or as you progress your Atlas skill tree, the bosses will get harder from the difficulty that you're adding here, right? And because of that, the physical damage mitigation is super important, and therefore the 3 dragons is a problem, because in order to mitigate physical damage efficiently with the Witch Hunter or Mercenary, you either use the Cloak of Flames or you invest 100 Divines Plus into God tier gear. So if you use the Cloak of Flames, now you've got 2 pieces of gear that deprive you from having good stats that you usually find on a rare piece of gear. So what do you do then? That's why I decided to give up the 3 dragons, and now I've got a really balanced build. So if you're watching this video right now and you watched the previous, the short version of the guide, then this is perfect, because after watching this you'll know exactly how to make the build even better and how to make your decisions perfect by just balancing the issues that you're going to face. And most importantly, it will tell you exactly how to optimize this build, and from there you can improvise yourself. You can use your own intelligence and come up with ideas that I probably wouldn't have thought of myself. So here, let's start with the Ascension passives real quick, a little update. So as you can see, I've switched over to using the Sorcery Ward, but only the first version of it. Why not the buffed version of it? Well, because with those 2 points spent, we get plenty of barrier. We don't need the 2nd level, and going the 2nd level means sacrificing either Decimating Strike, which is really good in this build, it helps clear like crazy, or sacrificing Zealous Inquisition, which is a no-go for me. I love Zealous Inquisition. I want to play the build the way that I want to play it. I don't want to be forced into a corner trying to get the better Sorcery Ward. So obviously you can still do that if you want, but you'll notice a huge drop in your ability to clear efficiently if you do this, especially in breaches or content where you have a lot of mobs thrown at you. So this is where we are right now in terms of the passive skill tree for the Ascension. And quick update about the passive skill tree. You already seen it in my main guide, but I'm just going to show you what the little changes that I made are. So I went and got these skills here to get a better Sorcery Ward barrier. As you notice here, +1 evasion rating per 1 armor on your equipped gloves. So what you want to do is get gloves that have a big amount of armor. So armor only, no evasion on the gloves. Just go and get pure armor gloves. Sacrifice the mana on the gloves, that's fine. This game is all about, it's a balancing act in Path of Exile. If you've not played Path of Exile 1, you'll notice that you don't want to block yourself off in a mentality where, oh, my gloves have to have exactly the mods that I saw on a guide on YouTube. No, actually, you can juggle, you can balance your stats by just getting it elsewhere. If you're lacking, like if you look at those gloves here, basically I needed gloves that had big armor. I didn't need the the flat damage on the gloves anymore because I found it on my rings instead. So as you can see, sometimes I'll get something somewhere and I'll lose it somewhere else. I'll just balance my stats. So the gloves have plenty of armor. That contributes to this passive skill here to give me a bunch of evasion. And it's better to stack evasion actually for the sorcery ward because of the aura that we are running here, Wind Dancer. Wind Dancer, basically it gives you 4 stacks of increased evasion percentage. And you lose a stack of those percentage evasion every time you are hit until the counter goes to 0. So 4 stages, 3, 2, 1, 0 stages. At 0 stages, there's a little explosion that knocks back enemies and also damages them a little bit. You can use support gems such as these to maim them, to slow them, to blind them. It's all useful stuff. It's actually very defensive, a very, very good aura to run. So this is one of the things I added to my build. Yeah, so this contributes to making your barrier even better for sorcery ward, and that's why you want to stack evasion instead of armor. The only time you want armor is on your gloves because of the passive I just showed you. And then the next thing you want is to have a helmet with as much evasion as you can get, whilst also having the stats you want. So on this particular helmet here, it's not a perfect helmet. A perfect one would look like 800 evasion, but it's fine. So for the price I paid, it's plenty. I think I paid 1 or 2 divine for this helmet. Plenty of life, plenty of mana, dexterity because I needed some stats, cold res, some life regen. The life regen is bad, it's okay. Some spirit on the corruption from the Valorb that was used on this helmet, and I also have added armor, evasion, and energy shield from the rune. All that contributing to a nice evasion number. And then my boots suck. I have to upgrade them soon enough. I will, but they suck. I mean, they're good in the sense that I have movement speed, life, some res, some fire res, and I got a lucky corruption on him as well. They got armor and evasion, but when I upgrade these boots, which I will do soon, I just sold a shield for 10 divines, so I've got some currency now. Yeah, so the boots, I will upgrade them for boots that are evasion based instead of armor and evasion to get even more evasion. Hopefully I'll get better resistances and stuff on them that I can use for the build. So yeah, all that combined gives you a nice sorcery ward. So the Wind Dancer thing from the aura, the gloves, the evasion from the helmet. Obviously, I'm losing out a bit of stats here that I could get on the chest piece, but we don't care because we get physical mitigation, which is much needed in this build. Very, very important. Do not pay attention to those clickbait builds that keep saying, oh yeah, go with this, this, and this. And it sounds great, but they have no physical mitigation. If they tell you, oh, we can handle the pinnacle bosses just fine, and they have no physical mitigation, do not believe them. I'm thinking of one video I saw recently without, I don't want to just point fingers. What I mean by this is, do not get sucked into the clickbait videos that are trying to tell you that, oh yeah, with this sequence of skills or items you can handle the end game content, when it's not true. One of those videos I saw recently, the guy was doing just fine in terms of clearing. He was doing tier 15 maps, so the build is viable to a certain point. But I saw him getting smashed with physical damage a few times during the video, and I could tell that the build was not sustainable in certain circumstances. So if you pick and choose and you hand pick your maps to have only nice easy modifiers, then yes, you can maybe use a sorcery ward with barely any physical mitigation, but the second you face a boss or a pinnacle boss, you will get destroyed. So yeah, so this build right now is very balanced. I'm going to show you the updates I made to my gem links just in case you are interested in this. So obviously sorcery ward, I just added the mastery support gems because right now I think those are the only ones you can use. The quality on this skill here, sorcery ward, comes from your ascension and automatically appears in your skills as if it was a gem, but you can't increase the quality of it as far as I know right now because the gem cutter prisms won't work on sorcery ward. So this is what I have right now. Voltaic grenade, I'm trying something interesting here, and I've realized that I should have pointed this out in the first guide, so pay attention to this. Voltaic grenade, if you are in cruel campaign, progressing, early mapping, whatever, these are the 3 support gems you absolutely want to have with Voltaic grenade. You want scatter shot, you want primal armament, and you want heft. No matter what, you want those 3. So let's say you got 3 4 link essentially, so the Voltaic grenade plus 3 supports, those are the 3 you want to go for first. The 2 remaining ones are just extra. They're just candy. If you can afford to have a 5 link or a 6 link, then those 2, you can do whatever you want with them. You can either go payload with ingenuity, which is what I'm doing right now, kind of counterintuitive, but it works out to really massive damage spikes. I love it. So payload, at first when you read it, it sounds really bad. supported skills have 70% reduced cooldown recovery rate, which is really bad in a sense. But grenades fired by supported skills have 50% chance to activate a second time. Combine that with this passive node right here. Grenades have 15% chance to activate a second time. You now have 65% chance of your grenades activating a second time. So look at my hideout here, right here. I'm going to shoot a few grenades. Notice how many of them are activating a second time, okay? As you can see, most of them are popping twice, which is really, really good. The downside to this is you'll run out of cooldowns at one point if you're just spamming your Voltaic grenades, but you got other skills in your build that you rotate to, namely shock burst rounds when you're dealing with rare packs. Sometimes you can lay down ballistas. So right now I'm living with the consequences of a not as good cooldown timer on the Voltaic grenades, but the double proc of the grenades is really good. I noticed that it helps cause screen-wide wipes or screen-wide explosions when I'm doing breach content or whatever, because the second explosion sometimes will be the little extra damage you needed to finish off a rare pack. He dies and he makes the surrounding enemies explode for 100% of his life, and in breaches, of course, you got a bunch of demons and undead, so that damage procs quite often. So yes, right now I'm using this. There are other options. You can use lightning infusion. Usually what I like to do, and here's what I advise, okay? The 3 main support gems I mentioned, and then what you want to do is try and have one utility support gem, and then another damage support gem if you can, or something that helps Voltaic grenades become better. So the 3 that I mentioned, utility could be inspiration, could be ingenuity. Inspiration makes your Voltaic grenades cost drop by 40%. If you're struggling with mana at the moment, if you're a few exalts away from being able to afford better gear with mana on it, well, go ahead and use inspiration instead of ingenuity. You can even combine the two if you want, ingenuity and inspiration if you're really down on mana. Inspiration and ingenuity combined with the 3 other support gems will allow you to spam the Voltaic grenades like crazy if you want to do that. But it's probably the best thing to do is inspiration with a damage support gem, so like lightning infusion. I always forget the name, but there's another support gem that I'm just going to write. I think it's 12%, is it? I'm just going to find it if it's in here. It's not in here. There's a support gem that makes you do more damage, 12% more damage, I believe, per elemental skill that you've used recently, different elemental skill. So let's say you used Herald of Ash, Herald of Thunder, or some cold-based skill, whatever. If you do all 3, then you get more damage. But in this build right now, I'm not really running multi-elements anymore because I'm not using the 3 dragons. So I don't need that support gem in particular. But other gems you might use for extra damage could be Execute, but it's not the best. You could also use the one that makes you do more damage but causes the duration of the skill to be higher. I have it, I think in my second window, right here. Nope, that's not true. Where did I put it? I'm just going to write grenade instead. Ah, there it is. Okay, long fuse. If you use this, 30% more damage, multiplicative, right? But you get increased skill duration, which causes your fuse time to be higher. So Voltaic grenades already have sort of a delay before exploding, and I don't like them to be longer than this. In fact, for a while I was even using fast forward support gem, this one, to make the fuse duration be lower, faster. So there's all sorts of combinations you can run. But yeah, basically a damage support gem along with a utility support gem. Your utility support gem for Voltaic grenade could even be the fast forward that I just mentioned if you want. It's all a question of preference at this point, but I think this is pretty optimal. If not, it would be probably ingenuity with another damage source, which would be fine as well. Shock burst rounds I left the same, but I put in concentrated effect. I don't know why I wasn't using this at first. I realized later that this is brilliant because you get a whole bunch of damage. You lose some area of effect, but you don't care about area of effect on shock burst rounds because you're using it for single target damage mostly. And the circle of damage it does, the AoE circle, is already quite big from the other area of effect nodes you have and sources that you have, so you don't really need more. So concentrated effect is a no-brainer. Ammo conservation, not everybody uses this on this skill, but I like to use it. martial tempo, fresh clip, and if you don't like ammo conservation, you can always switch it up to another damage increasing support gem. Emergency reload, always premeditation, persistence. You could have ingenuity in here if you want more occasions or more opportunities to use emergency reload, but I find that I don't need it. I'd rather have the cooldown on Voltaic grenades, especially considering I'm using payload at the moment. And artillery ballista, I don't really use that often. I use it mostly when I'm in certain scenarios where you have to use it. Imagine you're in a tight map like the one I'm running right now, with tight entrances and dangerous areas. You can use it to like face check a room before entering, in the sense that you just step into the room, back away right away. It will drag the mobs from that room into your room. They're going to get hit by the artillery ballista, and they will be aggroed by the ballista, so it gives you the chance to shoot them and be defensive with it. So I use ballistas to set up fights, boss fights, defensive moments where I need to use them to bait the enemies into attacking them, stuff like that. So, but in a sense, they're bad to use, and this is very important. Remember how I mentioned the Herald of Ice? And with the 3 dragons, how the cold damage from the explosions now build ignite because of the 3 dragons, which is bad. It prevents and it hinders the chain reaction of Herald of Ice. Here's another piece of information you might have overlooked, or people might not have mentioned to you before. Look at this. See this? Judge, jury, and executioner. Decimating strike. This is super important to this build. This is the main reason for going Witch Hunter, is this right here and this right here. You could even say Culling Strike as well. So this whole kit here is just amazing, right? It's just beautiful, amazing. I love it. Okay, Decimating Strike. Hits against full life enemies remove between 5% and 30% of life before the damage of the hit is applied. Now you might read this and think, oh great, I'm going to do extra damage right up front to full health enemies. Okay, so technically speaking, any new enemy that comes your way that gets hit will get affected by Decimating Strike, you might think. But will it? Actually, it won't if you're using something like Herald of Ash. Or, in the case of artillery ballistas, I'm pretty sure that it also could hinder the effect. Let me just make sure. To explode, artillery. I'm not sure if that one hits. Because usually when it comes to ignites are usually kind of like a spell, right? They don't hit. It's a damage over time effect. It's usually considered like an area of effects spell damage thing. So I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think I am, because I noticed a difference in damage. So my impression is that Herald of Ash, despite causing an explosion, since it's ignite and whatever, I believe that the ignites are not considered hits. Therefore, that means that when Herald of Ash explodes, or when your artillery ballista hits enemies, or launches a projectile onto the floor, and it creates this like floor of lava or fire, they step on it and they get ignited, you have to realize that their health is now being taken down a few notches by igniting damage, igniting fire, that is not a hit, right? Therefore, you are sabotaging your own build when you do this. It's a sabotage of your own build, because what's going to happen is Decimating Strike will not activate on those enemies because they're not at full life, and the damage that was used to reduce their health initially when they were full health was not a hit. Hits against full life enemies remove between 5% and 30% of life before the damage of the hit is applied. So emphasis on the word hit. So obviously, if the first thing that hits a full health enemy is an ignite from your Herald of Ash or your artillery ballista, if I'm correct about the way that I read on the internet, well then that is not a hit, and you lose the huge chunk of health being removed from Decimating Strike. So yeah, so ever since realizing this, I threw away Herald of Ash. And even if I were wrong, let's say I'm wrong about the Herald of Ash thing and artillery ballista, well, artillery ballista is still useful to use in certain circumstances, but Herald of Ash is bad anyways. Herald of Ash is probably one of the worst heralds you could use right now, because it does give you extra AoE clearing but it feels like the spell isn't even working at the moment. I believe they'll patch it eventually. And the radius is terrible. The explosion radius on Herald of Ash is 1 meter by default with the skill gem that I was using at the level I could afford to use it. Whereas the Herald of Ice was like 4 meters and even bigger because of the AoE from my skill tree and whatever. So you know that this skill tree I'm using has a whole bunch of area of effect, right? I've got a bunch here, some here. Let's see. I've got a little bit here. I've got a whole bunch here, right? Grenades, obviously there's a bunch of area, so I got a huge number of area of effect. Now look what happens when I put Herald of Ash in my things, in my skills. Herald of Ash. There it is. So I put this in. Look at the tooltip. Explosion radius is 1.1 meters. Ugh. Plus, it's ignite damage, which generally speaking right now is just bad. So Herald of Ash needs some love from GGG right now because it sucks. It really sucks. So might as well not use it. You could do a better use of your 30 spirit than use Herald of Ash. And that better usage would be Overwhelming Presence. So that's what I'm using right now. Overwhelming Presence makes your enemy's ailment threshold reduced. It makes it lowered. Now, careful about the word presence. In your presence is a radius that is predefined and cannot be expended or increased with your passives that say area of effect. They do not affect presence. The only thing that I'm aware of that affects presence is one single item, a unique, it's like a wolf type helm, I forget the name, but it's a unique item that doubles the radius of the word presence. But the radius is quite decent, and honestly, when it matters, that's a decent radius for you, because when you get jumped on by huge enemies or you're in a breach, you're going to get them, they're going to rush you anyhow, and all of them will get reduced ailment threshold, which is really good. And you can combine this with cannibalism, clarity, and precision, you know, the support utility support gems that I like to use on my auras. So all of these combine and make a really good defensive layer as well. Now I could put another support gem for Wind Dancer. I haven't checked to find one. I'm sure there's one I could use right now. And Herald of Thunder, I just removed the conductivity I was using or something like that. Actually, it was Glaciation from the 3 dragons. So I now need to replace it with another damage type. Probably Lightning Infusion, I guess I could use, or something like that. So I will replace it. I'll update in the description what I did with the Heralds. But just to say that even like this, right? Not all my gems are 6 links. With having spent a total of like 10-15 divines, this build kicks ass. It does really well. Look at this, okay? Gloves. I think those cost like 100 exalts or something like that. So very decent. The belt was a divine, I believe, or 1.5 divines. The boots I found myself, didn't buy them or crafted myself. The rings I bought for like a divine or 2 each. Very good rings, but not perfect in any way. So Flat Fizz, Life, huge mana from the quality, because the Breach rings can go up to 50% quality, so you enhance them with your Breach catalysts. And the other ring, same principle, Flat Fizz, Life, mana, an attribute, elemental resistances, and chaos resistance. So basically, keep in mind with the Mercenary, you're always, in the back of your mind, you're always thinking, I'm going to need mana, I'm going to need attributes, and I'm going to need defensive layers. Those are the 3 things that are the weaknesses of a mercenary, so I'm always aware of those, and I'm making sure that my gear has what I need to make sure that these requirements are met. Do not worry about your damage too much. Do not worry about your clearing ability too much, because the mercenary has a superb kit to clear. You don't need to worry about damage as long as you got a decent weapon. And if you look at my weapons, yes, they're amazing in the sense of the stats are decent. But they could be higher in damage. I'm right now grinding the currency to get about 20 divines, maybe 25, and I'll get myself a similar weapon, but with a DPS that's maybe 200 higher, so like 550, 600 deep physical DPS, and then I've got myself a badass weapon that I can use on the most high difficulty for bosses and pinnacle bosses. So yeah, let's look at the gear real quick. Cloak of Flame, this one cost me 1 divine, I believe it was, or maybe 1.5. So all of my gear pieces that I've bought, none of them are higher than like 2 divines. This amulet here, I was lucky. Someone was underselling it by a lot. This is worth easily 4 or 5 divines. and I got it for like 1 divine, I believe it was. Maybe 2 divines tops. But yeah, a very decent amulet. Not perfect in any ways. It doesn't have the projectile +2 level of projectiles, but still good. Good life, good percentage life, and I could even re-roll it with a divine orb to make the life go higher if I want to. Yeah, and the helm I just purchased recently, that was 2 divines, I believe. Yeah. So and the weapon also I bought for, how much did it cost? No, actually, this one I crafted myself, and the other I purchased, I believe. And it was, I think it was 3 divines. Yeah. Right now you can get a weapon like this for like 3-4 divines easily. So maybe not with 7 levels, but the other weapon here, +6, you can get that +6 with decent physical damage. You can get that for like 2-3 divines, maybe 4 tops. So yeah, it all adds up to like 15 divines basically if you want like really high-end stuff, or 10 divines if you want to save some. And we're talking like end game here. You don't need 10-15 divines invested to start doing tier 13, 14 or 15 maps. You only need the 10-15 divines invested if you intend to push some of the more juicy 15 maps, maybe with 8 mods on the maps, or maybe you've got some Atlas skill difficulty increases from your breaches here or your bossing here. So yeah. And I haven't shown you my Atlas skill tree, but this is what it looks like if you are wondering. I won't go into why I selected everything here, but I'm just going to show it just in case you want to copy it, or you want to look at it and see if you like it as well. So yeah, that covers it all pretty much. I fixed all of the issues that I had. Notice that the mana pool I have right now is 1400, and I don't have mana everywhere. I sacrificed my mana on my gloves in order to get the armor. I also sacrificed the flat damage I had on my previous gloves to get the armor. So those are my previous gloves. The ones with fire, yeah. So those are the gloves I was running before. Notice how I lost the flat damage and I lost the mana roll in order to get the armor, because at that point I realized I had plenty of damage and I needed the defensive layers a bit more. I was dying a bit too much, and in Path of Exile 2, when you die, you're being punished a whole lot more than you are in Path of Exile 1. Not only do you lose XP, but you lose access to your map. You can't even go back into your map to grab the loot that was dropped on the floor. Oftentimes in this game, Path of Exile 2, you will die from a mistake or something dumb after spending so much time in the map, killing everything, and then you've got all that juicy loot on the floor you haven't had time to pick up, exalts, unique items and whatever, and you can't go back in the map. So it's very punitive when you die in Path of Exile 2, because you lose XP, can't go back to your map, plus the map is not completed on the Atlas as well, so it's very, very bad to die, and that's why I invested in the defensive layers. What else did I have to cover? Yeah, the gloves with the armor. That's pretty much it. And the passive skill tree, I believe I showed you guys what I changed, did I? I think so, yeah. The ascension here. I got the defensive nodes here instead of the projectile ones here. I removed this here in order to have more points to spend. I went and got this armor one just to boost the barrier a little bit. And I also switched over. I had these 3 for the life. And I went over here and just got those 2. So instead of spending 3 points, I spent 2 for the same amount of life. Surprisingly, the 33 points of strength gave me 66 life instead of 62 with this node here, so I just went for that. I also grabbed Resolute Technique, which was impressive. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to run it or not, because I know that sometimes I crit, but since we don't have a single crit stat on our gear and we don't invest in crit, I figured why not. Plus we also have the lucky skill here from the passive, so makes sense doubly now. We don't even need to worry about crits, so I figured why not. It sounds great. I'm pathing alongside anyways, and I used it and I noticed a difference instantly. I also got the +2 maximum resistances here, so all elemental resistances, +1 to all max, +1 to fire twice, +1 to lightning twice, and +1 to cold twice. All that combined with my chest. Notice that the Cloak of Flame, I got myself one that had 2 sockets. Do not go and buy a 3-socket Cloak of Flames. That would be a worse investment than getting one with 2 sockets. Because if you get one with 2 sockets, you can get yourself one that has +1 to all maximum resistances as a corrupt modifier from the Val Orb used on the Cloak of Flames. If you do this, you'll get more for your money than you would with 3 sockets, because 3 sockets will allow you to do +1 maximum resistance to fire from one of those soul cores, another +1, and another +1 for a total of +3 to maximum fire resistances. But if you get the corruption that I got, you already have the +3 to maximum fire resistances. So +2 from the soul cores, +1 from that here, and even a free +1 to your cold and +1 to your lightning from having that corruption on the Cloak of Flames. So if you can get one that has that, that's great. And in terms of the first 2 lines, you don't even need the fire resistance to be completely maxed out at 50, and you don't need the reduced ignite duration on you to be that high. I managed to get one that's high, but yeah, just to give you an idea of what you can do. And so this combined with this, combined with this, and combined with this, and the passive we mentioned earlier here, and also this one, and eventually better evasion. Well, I have good evasion on my helmet, but I'll eventually invest and get more. Same for the boots. All of that combined gives you plenty of defensive layers and physical damage mitigation. If you look at this, at this point, the only thing you do not have mitigation for all that much is for elemental damage from spell sources, stuff that isn't considered a hit. So Sorcery Ward protects you from hits, and the Cloak of Flames protects you from physical damage, all kinds of physical mitigation, all forms of physical damage, be it hits or spells. The Cloak of Flames will protect you from it somewhat, but you don't have that much protection against elemental spells. That is why, and that is where your life pool and stuff like that comes into play. But honestly, running the way I am right now, I can handle most everything. And notice I'm also running Omens of Resurgence. The better thing to do would probably be to get Omen of Amelioration, which causes you to lose less XP when you die. Maybe you guys weren't aware that those omens exist, but definitely get yourself some Resurgences, because the Omen of Amelioration is expensive. 80 Exalt, I believe it is. Oh, it dropped to 70, so that's better, but it's still expensive. But it's still useful, because if you die, it prevents 75% of the experience loss you would lose when you die, so quite useful. And if you get Resurgence, you can get that for just a couple of exalts. Right now it's 7 exalts for 1, so it's 10 times cheaper than Amelioration, and it gives you the ability to recover your full life, mana, and shields when you reach low life. Now you have to be aware that the Omen of Resurgence, despite being amazing, if you are hit by something that is really big, like a huge hit that can one-shot you, the Omen of Resurgence will not have time to activate and you will die. It happened to me once, but that was before fixing my defensive layers. Ever since, I have not died. The times I came close, the Omen of Resurgence saved my life. So right now I really worked hard, and I put in a lot of hours to fix the build completely, and so now I really have a balanced build. I can handle the juicy stuff, the hard stuff, and all of that combined gives me a stress-free run, and my XP is finally flowing up and unhindered and undamaged, so that's great. I mean, I can still sometimes die, I suppose, if I have a really cancerous map with a ton of bad mods on it. I'm just gonna sell that. So by this I mean a map that is really, really dangerous, and I have yet to try that with this, because I just finished balancing this morning. This map I'm running right now is going to be a good test, but also if I look at this here, I believe I might have a good map to really test it. Let's see. I know I have one with like 3 damage sources. I'm just going to find that one. I'm going to really stress test this build. To finish off this video, we will stress test my build to the maximum, okay? We'll find one of the worst maps I can think of. I know I have one with like 3 damage sources. Just gonna find it. Oh yeah, extra damage. Extra lightning, chaos. So there's 2 damage sources in here. This one looks good. Okay, this is probably a good test, right? Lightning, cold. I can think of something worse though. I'd like to really put in like the worst of the worst. Lightning, rare, magic, stun threshold, ailment threshold. That's bad for us, but I guess we can run it. Let me see. Just gonna make sure I don't have any other maps that, because I'd like to run one that has like 3 damage sources to really test the build. Maybe crit even, like enemies with crit and extra damage. That would be the cancer combo, like 2 2 or 3 damage sources. You know when it says extra damage as cold or fire, whatever. So 3 of those plus crit, that would really stress test the build. But as far as I can see, the two the best ones I have are this one here, the stress test. Is that the one? Yeah. And possibly this one has crit, but it doesn't have the other cancer mods. So extra cold, crit. That could also be a good one, but we'll use this one here. You have to realize that because of my Atlas skill tree, those are going to get amplified, and the damage you see here, the extra lightning and chaos damage, is going to get even more worst when I enter the map. And on top of that, they've got ailment threshold, and I've got enfeeble. So this should be a really big test of the build. Obviously, it's not a tier 16 map, but it should be like dangerous enough that maybe I'll die. I hope not. I don't think so. I've got enough defensive layers that I should be able to survive. But this is going to be a good test. It'll show you exactly what's going on with my life pool, how fast is it draining now that I've made all these changes. Okay, I'm going to go back to this map that I was already in to finish it, unless I already cleared it, but I don't think so. Yeah, I wasn't done. So this one has, I'm cursed with enfeeble, minus 23% to my maximum player resistances. What else? I'm delirious, 7% delirious as well. So that's about it. So it's not the worst in terms of modifiers. The next map we're going to run is going to be more dangerous for me. But I'm going to show you what the build looks like now. Trying to make sure there are no... Okay, yeah. The elites are all in that center room, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this map. I forgot there's a breach here as well. Okay. We'll run the breach as well. It's pretty much in the way, isn't it? Okay, there you go. So because of what I mentioned before, the ignite's preventing the decimating strike, I will start this breach without using the artillery ballistas like I usually do, to make sure I don't hinder decimating strikes. Here goes. Oh, circle closing. Probably one of the worst map layouts for a breach, but hey, we didn't die. Got what we came for. We're gonna go and finish this map. There you go. Map complete. Oh. And we're going to run one last map with those more dangerous modifiers and see how well we do. By the way, this was a tier 18 map because it was a 16 plus 2 that I just ran. Plus ritual mercenaries, we usually don't like it as much because we're stuck in a circle without the ability to escape or stay ranged. So this will also be a good test of my tankiness. So extra chaos, extra lightning, plus ailment threshold, plus enfeeble. So those are all rather bad mods for me to handle, but I should be fine. And notice how all those numbers are worse because of my passive skill tree from the Atlas. So monsters deal 49% increased extra lightning damage, 51% as extra chaos, and the enfeeble, where is enfeeble? Weird. It feels like the numbers did not change. They usually are supposed to, but anyhow. Plus we got delirious as well. So notice this, the aura I'm using, overwhelming presence, that's reducing the enemy's ailment threshold. Notice how the enemies that are within that presence have like a distorted kind of like graphical effect to them. They look like they're blurry or something. That tells you that they're within the range of that debuff. See? That little blurriness to them. There you go. Notice how the enemies just got blinded from wind denser aura when it got procced. So that helps with your survivability as well. Are those worth anything? Nope. Oh, wait a second. Is there anything good in here? No. Nope. Reroll. Waystone tier 6. Okay. Looking to see if there's something worth deferring. Apparently not. Nope.
Pulled it to full.
Yeah, I'm very happy with the way the build is right now and the defensive layers. They're just good enough that I can pretty much do whichever map stress-free, and all of that without spending 150 divines. Notice how those grenades that activate twice often help me finish off enemies that would have been alive otherwise. Bye bye. 2 rare packs. Deleted.
No room. Gotta stay quick on my feet.
Nah. I'll keep him to reroll them. That's probably trash. Yeah. Yeah. The backtracking in this game, whenever it happens, it's a bit frustrating. Not too bad actually. I could actually reach him by going through the middle, maybe. There you go. I even feel strong enough right now to be able to do another breach boss fight, maybe. I'll check real quick. Yeah, the kids have come back from school, so I'm gonna go ahead and quit the stream for now. But leave a comment if you'd like to see this build fight the tier 4 breach boss. Alright. Have fun, you guys. Enjoy the Voltaic Grenade Electro Mercenary build and have fun with it as much as I'm having fun with it. It's amazing. I love it.